Welcome to the Whiskey Congress. Honest, open talk dedicated to speaking the truth to those who are open to hearing it. Black, white, right, left. Most importantly, honest, bold, and fueled by good whiskey. In Whiskey Veritas, we are Whiskey Congress. Join the evolution.
Welcome once again to Whiskey Congress. We again have a new whiskey to talk about.
Before that, though, I do want to talk about we did a little upgrade.
A little upgrade on this.
Upgrade in the studio. New mics with new headphones coming. Although the headphones don't affect anybody out there, but we did get new mics. I put a picture up on Instagram. It's also on our Twitter. So if you're listening, give us a little bit of feedback on this and let us know if we sound better, worse, the same. You know, did we just waste money or what? But we would appreciate that that input.
Very much, good call. We have a new whiskey, Barrell Bourbon. So I've been working in New Jersey, and I've been scouring for a couple things you said you couldn't find here, and I found a few of them. We'll get to those in future episodes. But along the way, I came across Barrell Bourbon. Barrell, B-A-R-R-E-L-L. It is a small batch bourbon, cask strength. It is 56.5, so 113 proof.
Very strong.
It is very strong. I think it's pretty smooth. I like it a lot, actually.
I do too as well.
I gave it a 91. Again, it's kind of a classic bourbon flavor. There's nothing really freaky, not smoky, not anything like incredible, but very strong, very smooth, really solid flavor.
So it's weird, and I don't know if you pick up on this.
All right.
Hold on one second.
As we drink, there's a little cherry in there.
Yeah, so right on the initial sip, and it's almost not even the sip. It's actually, like, once it initially hits your tongue, like, oh, it's so good when it hits your lips.
Okay, Frank the Tank.
There's a sweet flavor that's beyond cherry. And I'm not, like, it's almost like it's like a vanilla that comes through initially, like right as you put it on your tongue. But then as the heat from that 113, proof comes through, all of a sudden, that sweetness kind of goes away.
Yeah.
But you do taste the
blown
cherry.
away by the heat.
There's not a ton of, you don't even really pick up on any wood or anything like that. Like, again, it's just a nice classic bourbon flavor. It tastes like there may be some rye bourbon in there as well. That's blended in. But you gave it a 91.
Yep.
I actually gave it a 90 even.
Okay.
Just because the flavor profile isn't overly complex.
Agreed.
But it's solid. But there's definitely a lot of heat there. Like, I can feel it on the back of my throat.
But again, it's not a bad heat. It's not like, at least in my opinion, it's not like sometimes you have when you have a lousy high alcohol beverage, it just burns.
Yeah.
This just has like that. It's for lack of a better word, a pleasant burn.
Yeah. I mean, it's not Everclear.
Yeah. Right.
But it is. I mean, it's definitely hot. But it's definitely good.
I got to tell you something. So I put this in my checked luggage. And I was scouring through the rules. I did not break any rules.
No, you didn't.
So 70%, 140 proof or less, you're allowed to have, I think they said 5 bottles. I brought 4. Plus a bottle of limoncello that my friend Amanda got me from Italy that traveled all the way from North Carolina to New Jersey because I forgot it was in my packed stuff. But anyway, I had 4 bottles of liquor.
How about you unpack your bags, Jim?
It's a long story.
Okay.
I had grocery bags that just stayed in the car. Don't give me shit. So this was literally, I was looking for some of the things you asked me to look for, and I saw this, and you asked for something with the word barrel in the name. I don't remember what it was, and like Rogue Barrel. You said it.
Yeah. I sent you a list, right?
You did.
Yeah.
And I knew this was not that, but it intrigued me because I have an age statement. It's a 5-year-old bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, very high proof.
This is a good call. I like it. What was the price point? Do you remember?
$35 roughly.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's the beauty of bourbon is that you can get a quality bourbon for under $50.
Yeah.
Right. And you're going to get something with a strong proof. You're going to get something with good flavor. Something that you don't mind drinking with a couple friends. That's good. It's as good in the summer as it is in the winter. And bourbon is really, I mean, it's an American classic, and this one is very good. Like I said, it's a little hot. I would not. There's certain people like smaller. This is not one that you give to the late. Not that.
How dare you, you son of a bitch!
I know, but if you've got a person who is not a whiskey drinker.
Yeah, this is not for the casual.
Like, I mean, like if your wife isn't a whiskey drinker, don't start her with this one. That could take you down a weird road. So
yeah, I agree with that.
Or if your husband's not a whiskey drinker.
I was going to say, there's no
sex doesn't matter either way. If you've got someone who's not a regular whiskey drinker, or they're not accustomed to the stronger proofed booze, then this is not where you want to start.
Completely agreed. All right, so we need to talk about people with drinking problems. Brett Kavanaugh was grilled over his drink.
So we do need to talk about that. We also need to talk about Trump at the UN,
which was entertaining.
Right. We have you finally saw Black Panther.
I did, and I want to talk about that a lot.
Right. Bill Cosby was sentenced and is now in prison. We want to talk a little NFL action and kind of where the NFL stands right now. And then, and we'll go into that a little bit further because the NFL did something that was that you could consider somewhat groundbreaking. So we'll talk about that as well. So listen up.
Good tease.
I work on that. I watch the pros do it, and I figure, hey, I've learned something.
What is going to come out next?
Right. So that's it for the whiskey review. Barrell Bourbon out of Kentucky. What is it? Out of Harrodsburg, Kentucky, from Barrel Craft Spirits. Jim gives it a 91. Steve gives it a 90, which overall gives it a 90.5, I guess, in terms of average score. This is batch 13. Bottle number.
That's what attracted me to it. Like, this is.
And it looks like it's handwritten on here, which is pretty cool.
Even if it's not, it looks.
It's not like it's a label. And it's a pretty cool. I mean, it's a pretty cool program that they have to do this on their computer. But nonetheless, this is from.
And of course, some idiot goes tearing through in a motorcycle as we're talking. But okay.
I mean, wow! I can't believe these mics picked that up. But this is batch number 13, bottle number 3,391, age 5 years at 56.5 alcohol volume and 113 proof. So. If you see it, grab it, and we will pick this right up as soon as we pause the video.
We're paused. So, all right, whiskey segment over. Fun as always. The trials and tribulations of Judge Kavanaugh. I wrote something on our website that actually got a lot of feedback. Did you read my article?
I did.
Did you see the number of people who were commending you?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Steve, you're so open-minded. I respect you. I'm like, Fox, he didn't write this.
Yeah, people weren't paying attention to the authorship on that one.
But anyway, what I basically said was, had this been handled the way it should have, back in 1983, she would have reported it. And I'm not blaming the victim. Steve, I've caught so much shit on social media for talking about this. But words matter, phrasing matters, and you're phrasing it poorly. Let me finish. All right, let me try to power through. Had this been reported in the early 80s when it happened, allegedly, he would have been suspended for a couple days from high school, and it would have been over. Now, I'm not defending his actions. I am not compromising the alleged victim's point. My point is that to get someone to come out and say this may have been the guy, or even she says this was the guy, back in 1983 when he was 17 years old and I was 15, is not something you can bring up when he's 53 years of age, even if it got brought up a couple years ago, and get it treated like it is an adult committing an adult act in the current time. Not reasonable. I don't like Brett Kavanaugh. I shouldn't say that. I don't know enough about him. I probably don't like his politics. But I think this whole thing has been fucked up by the Democrats in a brutal way. Dianne Feinstein waiting till the last minute to spring this to try to do it as a gotcha moment was a terrible decision. But I watched some of the follow-up testimony in front of the Senate, and when Kavanaugh was asked, is it true that you went on a bus trip with your college, your law school classmates, and you said to one of your classmates, I'm still trying to piece last night together, like, that's a disqualifying question. Did you get drunk in college and then be a bit fuzzy the next day? Now, the fact that he denied it is actually more telling than the fact that they're trying to use it, because if that was me, I would have said, do you have any idea how many nights in college I have no recollection of? And I was in fucking college. I've been a judge for 20 years since then. Can we talk about that? Because that's relevant, Senator.
All right, you done?
I'm done.
Okay. So, part of the problem is, with this whole thing, is your response. Because your response isn't that far off from his response, right? Like, that indignation of, how can you bring this up 32 years later? Either bring it up when it initially happened, or kind of like shut the fuck up. That's how it feels. That's not what you're saying, but that's how it feels.
That's close to what I'm saying.
And it plays bad. It plays bad. You're not reading the room. He didn't read the room.
Oh, listen, you're right.
And so that's where like you're saying the Democrats fucked this up, and I mean, whether it's politics or whatever. Listen, Kavanaugh and the Republicans fucked this up from the beginning, right? Like, you know how you completely kill this dead in its tracks?
How?
Is you just say, listen, 17 years old, I drank a lot. Me and my buddy, we got hammered all the time. I can't tell you if this happened or not. I had plenty of fuzzy nights. I had nights where I drank too much and I don't remember. And this may have happened. I'm so sorry if this did happen. You're saying it's me. I honestly, I don't remember, but it's possible that it could have happened based on the timeline, based on the who, what, where, and when. It definitely could have happened, and I'm so sorry that this happened to you. I'm sorry that, my, irresponsibility as a 17-year-old brought you this sort of pain and this sort of trauma. I can't tell you that I did it, because honestly, I had a few nights where we drank too many beers and we had too many shots. And there's a lot of college kids who can tell you, but that doesn't make me not responsible for my actions. So I apologize to you. I apologize to your family. I apologize to my parents for just not having, better control of myself as a youth. If you ask me if I did it, I can't tell you that one way or another, because I honestly don't remember. And alcohol, it does it to you. Now, if you ask me right now, today, do I still drink? Yes, I do. Do I drink to excess? No, I do not. I'm a judge. I've been a judge for 25 years at this point. And I've done my job impeccably for that amount of time. I've worked for presidents. And so I understand my role and my responsibility. Listen, Kavanaugh says that from the beginning. None of this shit fucking happens. None of this shit fucking matters.
I would like to introduce our next Supreme Court Justice, Stephen Davis.
We never would have gotten to all the shenanigans that you saw on Thursday, or was it Thursday or Friday when that hearing, or it was Thursday?
It was Thursday, yeah.
I just thought that whole thing was a sham. And listen, I'm going to tell, none of us were there. We don't know what happened, right? It was 32 years ago in 1982 or 83 when this happened. I was either 2 or 3 years old, right? So none of us were there. She said there were only, 3 people in the room, her, allegedly Kavanaugh, and allegedly Mark Judge.
Right.
Judge is known as a guy who for years got blacked out drunk and hooked on, cocaine and everything else. So he's useless in this. And so now it's basically he said, she said. And, part of the issue is that because he didn't control this, because he didn't get out in front of it and own it, right, a narrative was allowed to be formed from the progressive left, right? And the more that narrative was formed, your feminists, your women who've experienced legitimate sexual harassment or rape or assault were dragged through the mud through their own experiences again. And that caught momentum to a point where it's a fever pitch. And I sent you a text earlier. I said, we need to be careful how we address and how we talk about this, because there are people who are genuinely emotionally, reliving traumas that they've experienced throughout their lives. And it's more women than we realize, right? That are reliving their own experiences with sexual assault, no matter how you want to minimize it or how you want to look at it or analyze it. Even if you look at it and say, well, it's not that big of a deal. Listen, if it sends a woman into a tailspin and it's traumatizing to her, it's a big deal. Even if it's to her in her sphere, it's still a big deal. And so because he didn't come out and own it, because he didn't do, like, even if I could say definitively that I didn't do it for whatever reason because I was here or there, but knowing that it was 32 fucking years ago, there's no way to fucking prove anything. You have to step out in front of this. You have to own it the way that I literally just laid it out, right?
Yeah, you laid it out perfectly. I mean,
and I think now listen. Would my response to Dr. Ford would that have made everybody happy? No, but would we still be at a point like because if he says, listen, I can't tell you that I did it. But there's a really good chance that it might have happened because I drank, I got blacked out. My friend was Mark Judge. You see what happened to him. I was able to get myself on the right path. Because then you take out the whole, do we need an investigation? Like, listen, I'm going to tell you that it's possible that it could have happened, but because of the time, because of, the things involved, I can't say definitively. And if it did, I'm sorry. And a lot of times, just owning it and apologizing to a person for a person like Christine Ford, she might have been able. If he comes out and he apologizes, he says, "Listen, if he just says I'm sorry and everything that's happened to you and your family, this is terrible. I'm so sorry. And if I was the cause of that, oh my God, I can't imagine what you and your family and your husband are going through. And I'm so sorry that that you've had to deal with this and you had to go to a therapist and you had to tell a stranger about this sexual situation that you didn't know how to process. I'm so sorry that happened." Right? Like, how does that play compared to him, being defiant and crying and sniveling and angry and everything that he was in that hearing? Right? Like, so for me, I'm looking at it. Now, I'm going to look at it. I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to confirm him. And it's not because of his politics. It's not because I necessarily believe her and don't believe him or believe him and don't believe. Like, it's become such a polluted situation right now that's filled with politics. There was a report that was, like, USA Today put out a report that there were 2 other men who said, oh, it was us who raped her or who sexually assaulted her. Right? Like, I put it out on Twitter, and I'm like, okay, now we're at a point where it's ridiculous, right? So now I'm shutting the whole thing down. I'm telling Kavanaugh, like, sorry, you got to go. And it's not because I believe that he sexually assaulted her, or it's not because I don't believe that he didn't. But right now, the whole situation has become such a farce. It's become so politically driven that I don't believe it's actually pure, and I don't believe it's what we want in terms of a Supreme Court justice nomination. So I have to send him back. Go get somebody else. You had 5 other people on your short list. Go give me one of those other people. Let's avoid this whole thing. And oh, by the way, Democrats, you pull this shit again, where you pull something out of your hat at the last minute, right? Like, if you get that type of information, it needs to be up front and center. You pull this shit again, Dianne Feinstein, this is directly to you. Your ass will be censured.
Absolutely. That bothers me a lot because clearly that aspect of it was played. That aspect was, we're gonna throw this out there at the last minute. It's gonna.
And then she plays this whole thing like, oh, I didn't know. I had it, and I just wanted to protect her privacy. And someone else must have let it out. I didn't. I was just trying to do what she asked me to do. Like that whole act to me is. Missed me with that bullshit.
And, all right, so let me go a step further down the path that you're trying to steer me away from. This opens the door for the future, right? Because so much of this has been, well, you did this last time, I'm going to do this time. So now anyone who's in the public eye for any appointed position is literally going to be asked, did you ever do anything inappropriate in high school or in college? When they asked Brett Kavanaugh, did you get drunk when you and your Yale law school friends went to a Red Sox game and rented a bus? Okay, that's fucking ridiculous.
Listen, okay, maybe, but that's given what they have to work with, right? The fact that you're going to put them in this situation, right, which is on Dianne Feinstein, right?
Yes,
First of all, Dianne Feinstein should have brought this up from the beginning.
Yes.
And the FBI should have been given the opportunity to look at it from the beginning.
100%.
Right? And then make a decision on it one way or another. Even if it still comes out in the hearing, like, you still have to ask those questions. Now, listen, I can argue that the questions could have been crafted better.
Can you argue that they couldn't have been crafted much worse? Because I could.
But, I mean, like, you're limited. I mean, you're limited in what you're actually going to say. You're limited on what sort of information you get because of the time frame, because of, you know, people's shitty memories, because of who knows what's happened to Dr. Ford between now and then.
Right.
Like, there's so many different variables to this that it's such a difficult situation. Even if you unequivocally believe her, right? And you say I believe every word that she's saying. I believe her memory is 100% crystal clear, and she is telling it like it is. And okay, even still, from a legal standpoint,
way past the statute of limitations.
Right, I mean,
but it's not about statute of limitations.
Well,
it's about appointing Supreme Court justice.
Well, it is, because you're saying, can he be a Supreme Court justice if, when he was 17, he got drunk and inappropriately humped a girl?
Yeah.
You know, and so what's the answer to that question? Are we saying the answer is no? And if the answer is no, okay, that's fine. I mean, then that's the standard. So that means that from you know, your high school years, you have to be responsible for your actions. That's not the end of the world. Listen, this whole idea of, I was in high school, I was young and I was dumb and I was drinking, and so, you know, it's 30 years later, why are you holding it against me? That's kind of a really shitty argument. Like, it is. It is, really? Because I didn't fucking hump anybody when I was in high school inappropriately.
I didn't either. I
didn't, like,
socially awkward kid
I never pinned a girl down, put my hand over her mouth, and tried to fucking take her underwear off.
I didn't either.
Like, and you know why I didn't? Because, like, listen.
Because you knew it was wrong.
I knew it was wrong. Listen, I was a horny teenager. Like, I went to a Catholic school. I went to a Catholic school with a bunch of girls from fucking Youngstown who would take their skirts and hike them up about 3 inches higher than they were supposed to be, and they would run the gamut of getting a fucking conduct card because they knew it drove us fucking nuts. Right?
A what?
They knew a conduct card. Like, you get a
conduct card.
A conduct card. Like, ooh, bad conduct. Like, I would get them because, like, I would grow a fucking beard in a day. You know, I was a pubescent teenage kid, and, like, I would get them for not shaving. But the girls would get them for having their skirts too short, and they didn't care because they knew that we thought it was attractive. Right, but even still, I never took a girl. I never took any girl that I went to high school with and pinned her down and put her in a vulnerable situation just because I was a horny teenager, right? And then when I was in college, right? Yeah, I drank and I had a good time, but I never took one of the cheerleaders or one of the girls from the soccer team or one of the girls from the fucking gymnastics team and pinned them down because I thought they were cute and hot and the way they dressed and all the other bullshit excuses. So the reason why I did it. The reason why I never did is because I understood that there were consequences for my actions, whether it was right then and it was going to prevent me from playing football or get me kicked out of school, or maybe down the line. So the idea that just because it happened 17 years ago or 32 years ago, we shouldn't be held accountable for it, fuck that. Actually, yeah, you should. Sorry. Don't be an asshole when you're a fucking kid. And you were an asshole when you were a kid, what was the reason why? Right? Was it just because you didn't have an opportunity to be an asshole and rape a girl? Or
hold on, you just made a big jump.
Or sexually assault a girl or whatever the fuck? Like, but you get my point.
I get your point. Alright, so to me that's one of the things that's been driving me nuts in this whole thing is they treat it like he was a rapist. He didn't. If the accusations are 100% accurate, and again, I'm not going to judge whether they are or not because I'm not qualified, I don't have enough information. But if they're 100% accurate, the worst thing he did was pin a girl down, which is not appropriate. Grope a girl, not appropriate. Cover her mouth, not appropriate. But to equate that to rape is not fair.
Here's the deal. I'm bigger than you.
Yes, you are.
Stronger than you.
Yes.
By a lot.
Yep.
How would you feel right now if I pinned you down and covered your mouth and tried to fucking take your pants off?
I would not care for that one little bit.
Right. Right?
And
now, could you imagine could you imagine being a teenage girl and having right?
Okay,
So listen,
I get it.
It's not rape, but it's still fucking awful.
But all right, I got bullied in high school in levels that I will not go to on the air because I will go to a dark place I don't want to go to. I've experienced some horrible shit.
Yeah.
Okay. I know how that feels. I was physically abused in high school and in junior high at levels that were again.
And we've talked about it off the air.
Off the air. And if I go there mentally, I go to a really bad place really fucking fast.
Yep.
Now, I didn't drink till my sophomore year of college, so I can't really talk to the whole drinking scene in high school because I literally was such a square.
I didn't drink actually the same amount of time. I didn't drink in high school, and then I went to West Point. So
yeah, West Point. But people did it. I'll bet.
They did.
People did it.
They did,
but the risks were way worse than at WVU. Drinking as a freshman was not frowned upon. There were bars that basically legit. But anyway,
So what are you saying?
Honestly, I got on a rant because
what are you ranting about?
My whole point from the beginning is
you got bullied.
Yeah.
But it's adversely impacted you as an adult. It's still late. I mean, listen,
it's still there.
It's still there. There are certain things, like I know there are certain situations. I've been in situations with you where people have said some things or done some things that have taken you kind of back to that where you were being bullied, and I've seen it flip a switch on you. You're talking
about Vegas or something else?
There's a couple of different situations,
really? Okay.
But I've seen how it impacts you still to this day. Right? Like, so for you, who've experienced something that was, we'll say it's traumatic, and not to be dramatic, but right. I mean, a little flow there, a little rhyme.
Traumatic, not dramatic, dude.
Little Tribe Called Quest feel. But the whole idea that you experienced that, right? And you know for a fact that it's impacted you to this day, right? So then, so this woman experienced something, and we don't know what happened.
Right.
We don't know what happened. We don't know who was there. All we have to go off is her word. Right, but either way, she experienced something, and so just because it happened 32 years ago, it doesn't fucking matter, you know. Because listen, because for any man to say, well, he didn't rape her, he just pinned her down, put his hand over her mouth, and then tried to fucking rip her underwear off, and to say that, oh, it's not that big of a deal, it's not rape. Well, how about this? I'm gonna do it to you. Right, I'm gonna take my big black strong ass and I'm gonna do it to you, and then we're gonna see how your whole thing as an adult male is impacted. Okay. Right, because there's been plenty of white dudes that talk really tough who end up in prison who understand what she's gone through, and they're not right to this day. So this whole idea of it's not that big of a deal, it's not rape.
That's not what I. All right,
it's not.
That's not what I said.
Okay,
I did say that, but that's not the point I was trying to make.
Okay,
I said it was not rape, and and rape would be way more traumatic, and to equate.
Who the fuck are you to judge the scale? Who the fuck are you to judge the scale on how an incident like that is going to impact a person? That's the thing. You don't get to make that judgment. Just because you don't think it's that big of a deal, you weren't the one who was being fucking pinned down.
True.
So you don't get to make it and say, well, it wasn't rape. Well, motherfucker, how about this? Let's put you in a precarious situation and then let other people decide how intense you should feel about it.
I can tell you, I have been in precarious situations. I have been in awful situations. I'm not trying to equate myself to her situation.
But right? But still, I could sit there and say, Jim, were you bullied? Who the fuck cares? Like, grow up, get over it.
And I've been told that. And you know what?
And again, so who the fuck am I to tell you to get over your experience? That's the part.
Okay.
Or to say it's not. Or to say of what level of frustration or pain or trauma or whatever you should pull from it.
So I'm not going to name names of people that I specifically have memories with. But if they were being nominated for the Supreme Court, I might think they were pieces of shit, because I do. But should their actions in high school towards me disqualify them from a job 32 years later? And it's one of the most important jobs in the country, maybe the world. Right? Supreme Court justices affect our lives in a way that is far more prominent than any president.
Than a lot of people realize.
Right. So, I mean, I guess...
So, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, you're telling me, like, this is the most important job in the world.
Yeah.
And so guess what? The standards to get into that job, they got to be high.
Agreed.
And they got to be real high. And just because like your last 20 years of working working as a federal judge have been really good, there's other aspects of it that matter. And so, and I don't think we should dismiss this idea of behavior a long time ago impacting a job like that. Like, I mean, listen, there are people who haven't gotten jobs that were nearly as important as the Supreme Court for less shit than this, right? Like, there have been people who haven't gotten jobs because they had a picture of a fucking beer, held up against their temple, and it was on Facebook, and the employer said, "Oh, well, you can't represent our company because you're a party animal," right? So you mean to tell me that Scott can't get a job with Kirkland and Ellis law firm, but he can, like, Kavanaugh can be a Supreme Court justice, allegedly sexually assaulting a person, or the fact that there's even a doubt that it may, or there's a possibility that it may have happened, and so we're going to sit there and defend him and say he should be allowed to get this just because you can't unequivocally prove it? Come on, man.
I don't think that's how I'm trying to say it, but
no, that is what you're trying. What you're saying is it happened a long time ago. It shouldn't be held against him. This is the most important job in the world. We have to look at all these other factors. Well, there's plenty of people who have applied for very important jobs and who haven't got them for reasons that are much fucking more petty than what is happening with him.
I'm going to pull the age card on you a little bit and ask, do you remember what happened when Justice Ginsburg was appointed and was shot down during, I want to say, the Reagan administration?
No, bro, I would have been...
Say it. I know. Well, I know how passionate you are about the Supreme Court, so there was a chance you would know it, but he admitted smoking pot. He admitted that he had smoked pot at one point in his life, and that ended his shot at the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. So...
So
here's
the thing. You keep telling me, like, it shouldn't matter, but you keep bringing up these points that prove what I'm saying. Like, it kind of should.
That point actually backs up your statement. I'm just putting the timestamp on it because it's so ridiculous that, yes, I smoked pot at one point in my life, and Reagan said, done. So... if you think Trump should have said done at sexual assault, but then again, the president has been accused of sexual assault. So, and that was one of his rationales for defending this guy. More than two.
Well, Clinton.
Two. Oh no, I said the current president was accused more than 2 times.
I thought you said there have been presidents, and I said there's 2. Clinton and Trump.
And you could probably expand that number if you dug deep enough. Are you Thomas Jefferson?
Thomas Jefferson. That's a whole
different angle. Let's change topics. It's good conversation. I mean, we're hopefully saying things that aren't getting said on every network.
So where are you on this?
On Kavanaugh's. If I am a senator,
are you like, politics aside, right? Let's just say, let's say you agreed with his politics. Would you confirm him?
Yes.
Nope, I would not.
Okay.
I would not for a couple of reasons. One, I got this thing looming over his head, and his behavior in the hearing was...
That's the part that would give me pause, because...
I just honestly... Not pause, like, nope, you don't have the demeanor. You can't do this.
All right.
You can't do this.
All right.
We've seen multiple people go through hearings who didn't behave like that. Like Hillary Clinton, they grilled her for hours over Benghazi, over the computer, the whole thing, and she never had a meltdown like this. Come on.
You know what?
Right? And if she had...
I did not see the meltdown. I know it happened. I heard it happen. I did not see it.
I didn't see it, but I had to listen to it. I tweeted about it.
I didn't listen to it, okay.
I tweeted about it because you could hear him, like, crying, and you could hear him snip. I'm sorry. I just need a sip of water. Are you okay? Are you okay, Judge Kavanaugh? I'm fine. I can continue. Like, you're a grown-ass man. Shut the fuck up. Are you serious? Like, that alone, like, my respect level for him is whether he did it or not, it's just like, just stand there and fucking take it.
Let me say one other thing.
If any woman had behaved the way he did, she would be being eviscerated right now. Eviscerated.
For getting emotional and...
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
But let me say one thing. This is kind of off the cuff and kind of weird, but anyone who says that people who do that job shouldn't drink, being a judge is a stressful fucking job. And if you can do that job and go to sleep without any stress, then that scares me more than a judge who drinks. Now, again, I'm not talking about the allegations. I'm just talking about, do you drink too much? You saw me when I was on jury duty. I was a fucking juror, and I was a mess, and it still bothers me. Well, I mean, you think if you can do that job without drinking, then you scare me way more than someone who doesn't drink.
Well,
total side. What's that?
I mean,
you're a lawyer.
I don't. I get what you're saying. I mean, I drink because it's a good time. Like the job, it's. I don't know, man. I guess
depending on what you do as a judge, as a lawyer. But I can tell you, when I was going through all that, I was a mess.
I get
you
it.
met me for lunch 2 or 3 times. You saw
did.
what I looked like.
And mostly just to talk you off the ledge.
Thank you.
But, listen, the experience that I had, working for the Cook County Public Defender, it's such a machine. And you get to a point where you're fighting. You're like, as a public defender, and that's my vantage point. But, I firmly believe I was fighting for my clients, and people will often ask me, as a criminal defense attorney, which I'm not now, but they would say, how could you defend people you knew were guilty? And my response has always been, listen, sometimes there were times where I didn't know if the person was guilty or not. I literally didn't know. There were other times where I definitely knew the person was guilty based on what they told me. And it wasn't about trying to get a guilty person off, right? It wasn't about trying to get a guilty person free. That's not what it's about. My job, actually, as a public defender, is to defend the Constitution. My job is to make sure that the police don't go out and grab some random guy off the street because they can't figure out who committed a crime, and they need to put an end. They need closure to a case, so they grab a random person, pin a crime on him. The prosecutor says, "Do you have any proof?" They say no, and the prosecutor says, "Well, whatever, fine. I get a disposition, so we'll do it." And the person doesn't have the money to afford a decent attorney. Their defense attorney doesn't give a shit. That person ends up in jail for 1 year to 10 years or life for a crime they didn't commit because they couldn't afford a good attorney. And the police couldn't figure out who committed a crime, so it was better them than nobody. My job is to make sure that doesn't happen, right? And if you have a problem with that, okay, until it's you or your son or your father, your brother or sister or mother or whatever, right? Like no, people say that shit doesn't happen, but
happens.
Like how many? Like I mean, I can go through. There's a laundry list of cases of people who there's a cop in Chicago right now who there have been people let out by. There've probably been 50 to 60 people released. Right, because there was a dirty cop out there in Chicago who was just arresting people and pinning cases on them just so that he can get arrests. And that happens in Chicago, and New York, and Baltimore, and Cleveland.
In Morgantown, West Virginia?
Every town, right? Every, moderate to big city, that has a decent crime rate, eventually you get a cop that gets eventually too jaded and just completely loses sight of what his actual job is. And so, again, my job is to make sure that shit doesn't happen. Right? And so, going back to Judge Kavanaugh and everything that he is going through, listen, between his disposition during the hearings, between the idea that this may have happened and just the idea that everyone played this wrong from the get-go, and instantly turned something that's supposed to be nonpartisan and instantly made it as political as it could be, I would shut it all down. And I would say start over and start clean, play by the rules, and do it right.
And are you saying that from Trump's perspective?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's that. Now, listen, me getting Trump to align with me is not something that is
likely to happen.
Not likely to happen, but that's what I would do.
All right.
You know, I mean, I wouldn't confirm Kavanaugh, but it's, again, like I said, it's not because I believe her story or don't believe his story or don't believe hers or whatever. It's just that it's so convoluted at this point. How can anybody feel comfortable confirming it? Right? How could anybody?
I just, the door that has been opened up by this whole process from a wide variety of angles, from last second.
And I would not confirm him, but I would issue a very, very stern statement. Right?
To who?
To everybody. Like,
but what do stern statements do? Nothing.
Well, if not, unless they're followed up by action. Right? And because here's the thing. Here's the thing. You know, a stern statement to Dianne Feinstein right now, followed by an actual censure, would actually be a pretty solid fucking statement.
And just give the statement, go straight to the censure.
I would do it, and I would say, you know what? I'm censuring you not because you put this letter out there for everyone. That's not the reason. The reason is that you held on to it. Why the fuck would you hold on to this?
I completely agree on that.
Why would you hold on? Oh, well, she said...
we know why she held on.
She wanted to remain anonymous. And I don't... Get the fuck out of here. You got... So someone puts in front of you, hey, someone that you're going to nominate for the Supreme Court might have committed a crime, but they want to remain anonymous. All right, well, I won't say anything. You're a fucking senator.
You're right. You do it or you don't.
Right. And I mean, like that, that's my issue with her, is that it's not about, you know, it's not about playing. This should have been front and center at the beginning.
Yes.
And because if you do it early enough, then it's just like, all right, fine, screw it. Just pull him. We'll put somebody else in there. Or
right.
He plays it the right way. You know, they say, all right, fine, we'll go with it. We'll investigate it. Then FBI, because they're going to do an FBI investigation, right?
Yeah.
What's the FBI going to find?
Jack shit.
Dick shit, right? Not a goddamn thing. Because according to her, there were only 3 people in the room. Her, Kavanaugh, Mark Judge. Mark Judge, blackout drunk, cocaine, everything else. I guarantee you he doesn't remember anything prior to college. Right? I guarantee you he doesn't remember anything prior to college. And obviously Kavanaugh is dug in on the fact that he didn't do it. So who else are you going to talk to? Her extensively? That's not corroboration. That's just her retelling her story.
That's kind of what I was going with the whole way down the road was when you dig into something 30 years ago, there's nothing to be verified. So all you're doing is...
I understand it.
All right.
But the idea that something happened... Like, listen, most rapists don't do it out in the open and in the public for everybody to see and document so that we can all go back to it and
understood. Again, you call them a rapist.
Rapists, criminals, sexual assaulters don't do it in broad daylight at specific times in cameras where people can see it and go back and reference it. Okay, that's even your worst criminals try to avoid being caught. Now, the very worst of the worst, because there was a guy that I had who tried to rob a convenience store, literally just walked into a store that he goes into every day and pulls a gun, and they're like, Rodney, what are you doing? And it's like, I need money, give me money, and don't call me Rodney. I don't want them to know my name. On camera in a fucking 7-Eleven. Can you get me off? No, you're going to fucking jail, you fucking moron. Anyway,
you should remind me of a scene from White Men Can't Jump. Harold, is that you? No, it ain't Harold. Get that damn mask off.
He didn't even wear a mask. He didn't wear a mask. He didn't wear a hat. He didn't wear sunglasses.
Rodney didn't. Harold did.
Right.
Then Harold sells the gun. He's like, now you're robbing me. All right. We need to transition out of that because we've been going for 45 minutes. Trump at the UN was interesting. I got into it with some folks about I thought he was an utter fucking embarrassment. I thought he gave a campaign speech. Now, he talked a long time. Only some of it was a campaign speech. But when you get up in front of the UN, they don't care about how great your economy's doing, how great your numbers are. When he did all that whole, I've done more in my first 2 years than most administrations have ever done, and the crowd, there's that, and then the crowd laughed, and he was like, not the reaction I was expecting, but that's okay. I thought he came off as a complete buffoon. I've been accused of having Trump derangement syndrome.
So
I won't that more if you want.
Right, so I won't say that he came off as a complete buffoon. This whole thing, I've done more than any president has ever done, and all that. I mean, like, come on, like let's be adults about this. But I can't get too upset with what he actually did, and we're at a point where people are obsessed with labels and how we phrase things. So, there were a lot of people who were very critical of his speech, and they said, "Oh, it was so nationalistic and it was populism, and he's focused so America first." And listen, he's the United States. He's the president of the United States. His job is to focus on the United States. So I don't actually have a problem with him, coming out and saying America's going to do what's good for America. Now, at the same time, you work in an international community. You're a part of the world. So there is this thing called diplomacy, and there is a game to be played, and you have to, when you're dealing with other countries and other people that you may need or you do need, there is a certain level of appeasement that has to go on. And from everything that I heard from the reports out, what the fuck is that? Is that a plane?
That's a plane.
Jesus Christ, these mics are they pick up everything, which is great.
Honestly, it's not showing up on the. It's all good. I think we'll see. The listeners, let us know if you hear a plane that's going on. I can actually hear the bubbles.
The bubbles fizzing from the soda water.
Yeah.
Because that shows growth by us. We're just drinking whiskey and not beer, right? It's soda water and just whiskey. So we're adults.
Right.
But
that's
anyway,
the reason, and not because I didn't feel like stopping for a 6-pack of beer. Yes, it's maturity, not.
We are maturing at
yes.
fucking 47 or however old you are.
47, thank you. Yes.
But you have to have some diplomacy. You have to play the game a little bit. And this idea that we're the United States of America and we don't have to play the game and we should just focus on us and
America,
fuck them. And
fuck yeah.
Yeah, that whole idea, it doesn't work because, listen, there are other countries that they once they start plotting and scheming and working together behind us, well, you can rant and rave all you want, but what are you gonna go to war with France? Are you gonna go to war with Germany? Are you gonna go to war? No, we're not. We're not gonna start World War III just because we're throwing a temper tantrum because our president gave a fucking bad speech. And people around the world said, "Fuck off, we'll do without you." No, so you have to, the speech wasn't the end of the world, but I think that he literally could have done himself, he could have made his life a hell of a lot easier, and it wouldn't have harmed him. Being diplomatic wouldn't have harmed him. So anyone who's saying that was the greatest speech ever, right? That it's that nationalism, America first, all that, that's fine. But him being a little bit more diplomatic, not being so harsh against everyone else, what would have been the harm in that? Right? That's the thing.
There's so many levels I want to go on that, and one of them is it's so obvious that he's reading some of these things for the first time. It was we've done all these things, so true, so true. I'm like, okay, you're now self-congratulating as if you're hearing this for the first time, which isn't a big deal. I'm not going to try to, but as a diplomatic speaker, in my opinion, he's a fucking disaster. And I don't know how many more ways I can say it. I would love to just change gears and get into fun stuff because we've been pretty aggressive and
Wait, that's all you got on this?
Yeah. Yeah, it was a shitty speech. He's a terrible public speaker. What do you want?
I think he's a bad speaker.
Terrible. Fucking awful.
So, and this is something I don't understand. And, our buddy Mike Wood, he was with us last week. And Mike said...
Can I tease a bonus episode? Because Mike and I spoke on Thursday, and we talked about whether or not I have Trump derangement syndrome and the Kavanaugh thing.
Okay.
And Black Panther.
There it is. Teased.
So there's a tease.
But, Mike swears that, Trump is this amazing speaker.
No,
and
that's... All right. See, I hate when we do this when he's not here.
What the fuck? I'm not going to have him on every Friday episode.
Understood.
I mean, just because he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to talk to us all the time. He's busy fucking...
Stop.
Jarring
Stop.
He,
Right.
Did you see? He's got literally, it looked like there were 100 jars of prickly pear.
I saw what he's
jam
talking about
or whatever.
Yeah, he's doing that. But
I better I would assume we're going to get a basket.
We are going to get a jar apiece, I believe. If we like it, maybe we'll get more.
All those jars, we get one fucking jar.
You know what? Again, this is why we don't talk about people who aren't on the show, especially friends of the show like Mike.
Because I want more than one jar of prickly pear
jam. All right, that statement has been made.
Mike, I want more than one jar. It's bullshit.
I hate when you do this. All right, if you want to finish your point,
I'm not even criticizing him. I'm just asking. I'm anticipating it being good because he's got OCD, so I think it'll be fine.
He says it's amazing. I'm looking forward to it as well.
So I want more than one jar. That's fair.
All right, fair. Let's jump to Black Panther, which I talked to Mike about, but that'll come out on Wednesday or Thursday. Black Panther, I finally saw it.
Year later.
Enjoyed it. Yeah, no, it took a while. I enjoyed it. It was as Marvel comic book movies go, very high on my list. Deadpool is still my top. I love Deadpool so much just because it was so adult and so vulgar and so, it didn't try to appeal to a younger audience.
So I'll tell you this. My list is Captain America Civil War.
Okay.
Followed by Captain America Winter Soldier.
Okay.
Followed by Avengers Infinity Wars.
Okay.
And then
I haven't seen any of those. I'm not as into those as you are. Which I like.
Followed by Thor Ragnarok, and then the fifth one would probably be Black Panther.
Okay.
That's where Black Panther falls on my list, but I still thought Black Panther was very good. I just thought all those were just that much better. In the initial, the origin story, typically, and this wasn't really an origin story in terms of Black Panther, but, that initial one, for all of these, has been, they all started a little slow. But I thought that this was a little bit different because there's some things you can't ignore. You've got a cast that's 98% black. You've got a storyline that surrounds that's about Africa and African people and black people, and it's not a bad sad story, right? It's a good fun story where we're the good guys and we're winning and doing cool shit. Those typically aren't the stories told about people who look like me. So the idea that people, again, who look like me got excited about a thing that talked about us and things that didn't suck about us, then even though it was fiction, it's still fun. And I think there were a lot of people who, were, and it's weird why people were so upset about it, right? Whether it was Ben Shapiro or anyone at Breitbart.
That's my favorite.
Or anyone at Fox News, like, oh, why are you making such a big deal about it? It's just a movie, right? It was, Breitbart tried to completely flip it around and say it was an homage to Donald Trump.
I didn't hear that.
And I think I actually mentioned it a while, or I think maybe I tweeted something about it, but obviously it was a year ago.
Right.
But this whole, the backlash from people. Like, oh, well, even we know people who have lashed out at the movie because it wasn't that good and you guys shouldn't be making that big of a deal about it. It's just like, well, listen, most movies that are made are 98% white, right? That talk about white people shit, right? It's just like, oh, no, this white people shit is everybody's shit. No, it's not. It actually isn't, because we actually live in a world where our existence is actually completely different, whether you like it or not, whether you want to believe it or not. I don't care how many degrees you have and how much studying you've done. My experience in life is different than yours, and skin color has a big part to do with it. Period. Fuck off. Right? I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not talking to you. I'm just saying in general. Like, this is not an argument. We're not going to have a discussion. We're not going to have a debate. It is what it is. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry. Go write about it in a blog and go fuck yourself. I don't care. Our experiences are different, and a lot of it has to do with the color of my skin. That just is what it is. Right? Like, so sometimes things like this happen where movies are made and funded, right? And the cast is mostly black, and it's not a movie about slavery. It's not a movie about people being murdered in Africa. It's actually a movie where we are having a good time, and we're winning, and we're smart, and things are looking good. That is a nice time at the theater for me. That doesn't often happen. And if you think that that doesn't matter, then you're full of shit. And you know why? Because you've never experienced that. Because all these movies, whether it's 50 First Dates or fucking Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, right? Like, it's just a cast of all white people and you guys are always fucking winning. It's just like, so here's a movie about us and we're the ones that are winning. So we enjoy it.
And so here are my takeaways. Because I talked to you about the movie. I had actually done a punch back on our YouTube channel at Ben Shapiro. Because he was talking about how, you know, it depicted Wakanda as a utopia. I'm like, was it? It was a monarchy where you could challenge the king to a duel to the death, which happened twice in the movie.
Right.
The way it was shot, I thought was awesome. They did a lot of cool things. I mean, special effects keep evolving,
right?
And so that whole thing, you know, they did some things I'd seen in previous movies and just made them more modern.
Can we hold on? So the thing that bothers me is that the whole Black Utopia thing, right? And essentially, it was a black civilization.
Right.
That hadn't devolved into war, crime, whatever. That's not necessarily a utopia. It's what's the difference between Wakanda and fucking Sweden?
Well,
I mean, other than vibranium.
Other than vibranium,
like, you know what I mean? Like,
they have 6 foot tall blonde women, which is equivalent.
Okay,
to vibranium.
so in Wakanda they. Don't. I have had alcohol. Don't take me down a dark road. Don't take me.
Anyway,
I can start telling stories about Miami.
All right, no, let's not do that. I only know a little bit. There's very few things you and I don't share. You've protected the Miami stories, and good. But anyway, no, I thought it was. I mean, the whole point about it was it's an advanced, technologically powerful country that realized if we let the rest of the world get hold of what we have, they'll come after us because there's been a little bit of colonization and colonial activity in Africa over history. I don't know why it sounded like that.
Right, I'm not sure why you did that, but I mean, it's
right.
absolutely true. And I mean, there's, you know, what's funny is that there's a lot of people who knew nothing about anything about Black Panther, about Wakanda, who jumped into this whole thing, and they're just like, all right, well, I saw the movie, and I know everything about it, and this is my, like, no one gives a fuck about your take, actually, because there have been people who've been reading these comic books who understand that the story was written back in the 60s. There was a strong connection between what was happening in the civil rights movement and in the comic book, and in the world of comic books. Stan Lee and one of his other co-writers put this story together, and they won't come out and say that it was an homage to Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or whatever, but what they will say is that they took inspiration from what was actually happening around them, right? And they wrote this story about a powerful, you know, black leader in their world, right, that was dominated by, you know, typically like white heroes. But I think the great thing about comic books is that you have these heroes that are different, whether it's the X-Men or it's the Incredible Hulk, who's a giant green guy, or you have, you know...
Which is ironic because you're wearing a green shirt. Tell me about it.
Right.
You are currently...
you know, but I mean, and so there is a lot of history, not only between the actual reason behind the story, but the actual story, right? There's a lot of background to the Black Panther that wasn't covered in the movie, right? And actually, the idea that it was a utopia, if you look back into the history of what happened in the comic book, right? Like, it was actually, T'Challa's father came to power to a very, violent exchange. Like, it actually, the idea that it was a utopia isn't accurate or representative of what you were actually seeing. So,
that's a tease also, because Mike and I had to talk about some stuff that I knew nothing about. So I might have to tag team, get you into that fight, but that's another thing. We got a lot to talk about. We've been going on for a while. Bill Cosby's in prison now. I find this devastating because, to me, Bill Cosby represented so many positive things.
Just so we're clear, I think this is going to be the last topic of this show, and we'll do a little mini episode.
All right, sounds good. That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
But what I will say, so I know where you come out on this.
We've talked about it, yeah.
We've talked about it. To me, listen, I watched the Cosby Show with my family. I watched A Different World.
Did you watch Fat Albert?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's where the age difference comes in.
What was the picture and the pencils? Remember the thing?
I don't remember what it was called.
Like you were too old and I was young and I watched. Picture Page is what it was.
Okay.
It was on Nickelodeon. But you are older than me. I'm sorry. You're fucking 10 years older.
That's what the 10-year age difference is interesting, because that's why I asked about Fat Albert, because to me it was rerun stuff. But all right, go ahead.
But so. I definitely Bill Cosby is one of my top comics. We had our comic episode.
Yes, we did.
His stand-up is great.
Yes.
His show was groundbreaking. It was great. His contributions to society, to the black community, to comedy can't be denied. I can separate the artist from the man. And everything he did in the way of art and philanthropy, I still appreciate. But he admitted that he bought pills and gave them to women, and those pills put those women in a position where they couldn't deny his sexual advances. He admitted that, on record.
Yeah.
And then he was found guilty of doing it. How can I, what is there for me to be upset about? I'm upset at him for doing it. You're fucking Bill Cosby.
Totally agree.
You're Bill fucking Cosby. What the fuck do you need to give a bitch a Quaalude for? Seriously. Just if I'm Bill Cosby, this is what I am doing. Please come to my room. Come to my room. And then you have a talk with her, and then it's just hey. Would you like to partake?
You do the Derek Jeter, right? We're going to do this. You're awake. I'm awake. We're consensual. I want to keep it on the DL.
Right. If you want to do it, let's do it. If not, get out.
Then cool.
Right. I mean, and listen, I'd rather be a dick than a criminal.
Yeah.
Right. I'd rather be a dick than a criminal. So I'm Bill Cosby. Suck my dick. You don't want to suck my dick? Get the fuck out. Right. I'd much rather be a dick than a fucking criminal. Right, and he made that choice. He made that choice.
You're absolutely right.
He made that choice. So listen. I'm not upset that he's in jail. I'm really
not upset
not.
that he's in jail. I'm upset that a guy who I admired so much was a fucking serial rapist.
Yeah, well,
because he was so influential to so many people,
that
including me.
None of that changes, Jim.
You know what it does? To me, it does.
No, it doesn't.
To me, it does.
It can't. You actually can't unchange it. You can't just you're saying it because you're having an emotional reaction, but you can't change it because it's already happened.
And it happened 30 years ago.
Right.
Let's play rough, brother.
Remember, our mics are sensitive.
Holy shit! You should see what just happened. But yeah.
Right. So it happened.
Fuck. So Barrell Bourbon apparently also has.
But all that being said, though, listen, Bill Cosby has. It's unfortunate that he took his show out of syndication because that had a really negative impact on everybody else that was on that show. Every single person that worked on that show, they were getting royalties and they were getting money from that, right? Like they and I understand why they did it, because there were 60 alleged women who came out and said that in some way, shape, or form he either did this to them or attempted to do it to them, and so those women who were potentially victims of Bill Cosby shouldn't have to flip through their TV and see him on TV. But when they took his show out of syndication and they took it off TV altogether, like, you can't find the Cosby Show anywhere. Every single person that was on that show, other than Bill Cosby, they were all, I mean, including Bill Cosby, they were all getting royalties from it, and they're not now. So there was a ripple effect that happened there. That's really unfortunate.
All right, so
for those people.
Let me sort of go on that and then change it a little bit. You're right, and the attempt to punish the awful person ends up affecting other people who had nothing to do with it, and that ripple effect. If they said, you know what, because of this Bill Cosby, you don't get your residual check anymore, but we're going to keep this program on the air because it's quality stuff.
Well, but again,
let me go for some further place, because I posted something on Twitter, on our Twitter account, that was Samuel Jackson tweeting, or they basically, someone spliced in Samuel Jackson clips from Pulp Fiction and Brett Kavanaugh, which was fucking hilarious.
Yes.
And
fully agree.
And so it was the, yes you did, Brett, yes you did. It was funny shit. I posted that, a couple people got really shitty with us. You know who you are, and good for you. I hope you feel good about yourself. But someone posted as a response to that, a picture of Samuel Jackson with Kevin Spacey. And they were in the movie The Negotiator together. I'm sure they interacted a lot. The fact that, and it was supposed to be a gotcha to Samuel Jackson, like, you were friends with Kevin Spacey, therefore you can't chime in.
They were in a movie together.
They were exactly.
That doesn't mean they were friends.
Exactly. I don't care if they were in a photo together. The point was, this person thought this. Oh, here's our gotcha. You're in the same picture as this guy. Well, that guy is a great actor.
Listen, Kevin Spacey wasn't raping dudes while we were filming The Negotiator.
Right. I wasn't in the room, and.
But
the artists from the art. Kevin Spacey, great actor. I will watch Usual Suspects and think, not happy that you had these issues, but still a great fucking movie.
So, here's my thing. Going back to Cosby, I got no issues with him being in jail. Right? People really want to get upset, and
I hear you.
Well, there's a whole.
I'm sad. I'm not.
There's a whole faction of people out there who are saying it's a conspiracy and everything else. And my thing is, the only reason you're saying that is because of the lack of justice in the system. Listen, Bill Cosby, again, flat out said, I bought the pills, I offered them to women, they accepted them. His defense is, the women accepted the pills, so once they accepted them, I had, free range to do my thing, right? Like, and it's like, no, you didn't. So I have no issues with Bill Cosby being where he is. It's unfortunate, it's sad, it's disappointing, blah, 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 the whole fucking thing. I'm over it. My issue is, I got Louis C.K. who admitted what he did. He literally said, yeah, I did it, and I was a dick for doing it, so that sucks, and I won't do it anymore. But, shit happens, and I'm going to just start showing up at random comedy places and restarting my career. Nowhere near has seen any sort of, no detectives have talked to him, no attorneys have talked to him, like, he's fine. Harvey Weinstein is in some shit right now, but, I mean, think about it. Like, Harvey, like, the accusations against... You want to talk about comparison? Like Bill Cosby,
bring it.
Like Bill. Well, what I'm saying
Louis
is
C.K. didn't penetrate anybody. No one. Yeah, that's a big difference.
But whipping your dick out in front of somebody is still a fucking crime, Jim. I don't know what the fuck world you live in, but if you walk outside right now and whip your dick out, that's a fucking crime.
If I say to you in a private place, can I do this, and you say yes, and I do it, it is not a crime. It might not be professional. It's not a crime.
Who said yes?
The girls. No one said he was never accused of doing anything. I can't believe we're devolving down this. This goes back to the comedy discussion. No one ever said, I said no, and he did it anyway. They said, I said yes, but I felt pressure, and that's why I said yes, and he did what I said yes to.
Fair enough.
Okay.
But listen, being a person in a position of power,
right, and
saying, "Hey, can I whip my dick out in front of you?" That's a crime. It's still a crime. Like it's not. Are you?
I am arguing with you. Yes. Is it?
So you don't.
It's unprofessional. Is it a crime?
It's a fucking crime, Jim.
What's the crime?
Because if I'm your boss and I sit there and I say, "Hey, can I take my dick out?" Oh, by the way, I'm not gonna say that if you say no, you're fired. But the implication is there because I'm your boss.
What's the crime? Like, what is the legal?
Jim.
What is the legal?
Jim. You're literally getting upset with me.
I'm not upset. I'm completely calm.
You're literally okay. So this thing that you're doing right now,
I'm asking questions.
That's why people So this is you are embodying Brett Kavanaugh right now, right? Like so you're literally so your argument is. So you're telling me that I can't take my dick out?
That's not what I'm saying.
If I ask my female secretary if I can take my dick out and she says yes, then I should be A-okay. No, bro, that's not how it fucking works. If she depends on you to pay her, and you say, "Hey, can I take my dick out?" and her thought process is, if I say no, will he fire me? That you
what
can't
is
do
the crime? Is my question,
Jim. We're not doing this. We're not doing this.
Legally, I'm asking you a legal question. Is that it's not?
You can't do it.
I'm not defending it. I'm asking. Fuck's sake, dude. We have never devolved this far in the show ever. I've never defended Louis C.K.
Okay, hold on. Let's.
I don't know why that we ended up on Louis C.K. But
okay.
Dun dun dun.
Sorry. That's
These mics are amazing.
They are very amazing. Crime is the wrong word.
Thank you.
But you can't do it.
Agreed. I'm not defending the behavior.
But
I'm not calling it criminal.
but what I'm saying is okay. Well, what happens is anyone. Okay, hold on.
You want me to pause this?
Well, no, I don't want you to pause it because on the crime issue, I'm pretty sure I can pin you with a crime on this, but that's because I'm pretty sure it's gross sexual
imposition.
Imposition. I'm 99% sure it's gross sexual imposition.
Okay.
But on top of that, you also have employment labor law practices that this violates, which aren't criminal, but you can be sued for. But,
all right.
So there's that, but I'm also 99% sure that's gross sexual imposition. And even if you're saying, well, she said yes, I'm pretty sure that I can make the argument that if you work for me and I ask you if I can whip my dick out and I can fire you and I can punish you if you say no, I can still get that conviction. So I'm so comfortable saying that it's a fucking crime.
All right, this whole thing went down a weird road. Your bigger point was Cosby's in jail. I'm depressed that a guy I admired is a fucking rapist. Before we wrap up and head to talk about football because
I guess
it's gone down a horrible path.
Well, no, it's not a horrible path. Like this is the path that we have to go down, right? Like, I mean, like you've got Cosby, you've got Weinstein, you've got Louis C.K., you've got Matt Lauer,
Kevin Spacey.
Like you've got all these people. And my issue with this is, I think you would have less issue with Bill Cosby if the rest of these people were brought to task for their actions. Right? Like,
when you say less issue, you mean I'd be less disappointed that a guy I admired in prison? Or what?
Well, no, I guess...
Admired?
Right, yeah, I mean, but I guess if we pay attention to these sort of things, how men treat women, how men in power treat women, this whole idea of I'm the CEO of a film company, and if you suck my dick, you get a job, right? Like, that should be a crime, right? Like, I mean, I'm not 100% sure that it's not, right? I mean, I haven't dealt with that. I haven't looked at the legal precedent of it. So
I have no idea.
You know, I mean, like, so that's why I was hesitant to jump into it, but I'm pretty sure that I could craft it or put it in a way in such that it is. But I mean, that whole premise. Listen, man, you know, this is supposed to be our last episode, and I think we're fucking at an hour and 20 minutes.
We are
way too far.
1:15.
You know, but you know, people. This whole idea of I'm a dude and I've made it to the top of my profession, so if you want a job, you have to sleep with me or suck my dick. That whole thought process is bogus. Like you gotta get the fuck over that shit. I
agree with that.
Right? Or this whole idea that, hey, I'm a rich white guy. Praise me. Right? Like that whole fucking mentality, that's what keeps getting you fuckers in trouble. Right? Like,
let's start with Bill Cosby, who is rich black guy.
Right. Well, no, I mean, that didn't start with Bill Cosby. Like, Bill Cosby is the one.
Conversation started.
But part of the problem, like, here's the problem with all of it, though. All these rich white dudes who do the same thing that Bill Cosby has done, literally who have done the exact same thing, who have literally given girls pills, paralyzed them, and fucking fucked them and raped them, and everything that they've done, they haven't been touched, they haven't gone to jail, we haven't even fucking heard about them. Right? Sure. All this shit going on with Me Too, whether it's Kevin Spacey or Harvey Weinstein or whoever, all these people, Bill Cosby has been charged, tried, convicted, and he is in jail. He is 81 years old. He can barely walk. He's blind. He is in jail. He will die in jail. Right? Like, so the problem is that all these fucking white guys doing the exact same thing that he's doing, and he's the only one who's going to die in jail. I don't have a problem with his scenario. My issue is everyone who's allowed to continue to do what they're doing. Right? Matt Lauer could have some girl trapped in his home office right now, ramming his dick in her face, and we don't know, but he's allowed to continue to do it because everything he did at NBC, all he did was he got fired, but he's still worth $50 bajillion fucking dollars because he was making $20 million a year as the host of a fucking terrible ass show.
If you're asking me to defend Matt Lauer, I will not do that.
I'm not asking you to do shit, but what I'm saying is, why the fuck is that motherfucker not in front of a judge, not in a fucking prison cell, getting pinned down with someone covering his mouth trying to take his fucking jail-issued underwear off? That's my question.
This is, all right, we've gone down a path that we need to punt, brother.
No, we don't need to punt. That's the point of the conversation with Cosby. Right? Like, really? Why the fuck is he in jail and no one else is? I don't have a problem with him being there. What I do have a problem with is that people who have done similar things or things that are in the same realm or just as bad or worse are nowhere near the situation that he's in. That's the issue.
All right. I don't think Bill Cosby's in this situation because of his race at all.
It's not because of his race. Again, I'm not blaming his race. It was his choice, his decision to do what he's doing.
Okay.
But there are white guys who have done similar things that are nowhere near jail. That's the issue. Right? Like,
look, again, I'm not going to defend Matt Lauer. I'm not going to defend Harvey Weinstein or
Louis C.K. should be in jail.
No, he shouldn't. Louis C.K.
So you think you should
put
be
him
allowed
in the same category drives me nuts.
I don't give a fuck if it drives you nuts or not. That's the problem that's the thing that you don't get, and you may never get.
I probably won't.
Right? Like, I don't care if that drives me nuts. They're not as similar.
Because
like, you can't
fucking whip yourself and physically assaulting someone are different fucking levels.
But I don't give a fuck whether
they're both
different.
Wrong,
they're different levels to you. But you're not the person who has to sit there and look at your fucking stumpy dick. And who knows how fucking traumatizing that is to the person who has to look at it. That's the thing. You don't get to fucking tell the person, the victim, how they feel about it. That's the part that you don't understand. And that's the whole thing with white guy entitlement that drives people fucking nuts. That's the part that you don't get. You think that you're the one who is allowed to dictate. You're not allowed to dictate shit.
I'm not saying I'm allowed to
dictate.
You are.
You're just like,
I'm categorizing.
You're just like, well, categorizing, dictating, Jim, it's fucking semantics. You don't get to fucking tell people how they should feel, react, or how things should be perceived. Especially when you're not the one who has to perceive it.
All right. We're not going to come to agreement on this because I don't think it's... I think that's not a fair equivalency. You're going to yell at me all you want.
And I'm going to tell you that no one cares about whether you think that, like, this is where we're at. This is a big part of the Me Too movement, right? The part that is going to be very hard for you to grasp and people who have your same similar mentality is that no one gives a shit what you think about where we should be. The problem is that people like you have been the ones in control of how we should think about this sort of thing, right? And so this movement, listen, as a guy, a big black guy who played football on a campus with a whole lot of white women, I've had to deal with people accusing me of things that I didn't do, right? Like I've been
accused of things I didn't do too,
right?
By the
like
way.
and all those sort of things. But that being said, like part of the problem, like the big part of the Me Too movement is that guys like you, right, who sit there and say, well, this is this and this is it. This is it. Like that's the thing. You want to get pissed about it, but the problem is that it's the way you're articulating it, right? Like you're making it about what you think things should be, and it's not. It has nothing to do with you. It literally doesn't. It literally doesn't, because we have to start to look at these things from the vantage point of the people who are being assaulted, abused, affected, impacted. Not from the vantage point of the dude sitting there watching it from his chair up here.
I hear what you're saying, and I understand it. But I will say...
I just disagree.
No, I do. What I disagree with is when you put everything in the same bucket, you are doing a disservice to the really... You're failing to separate the really bad guys from the bad guys.
No, I'm not.
All right. We disagree.
We separate the bad guys from the really bad guys.
No.
We do it all the time.
To put Louis C.K. in the same category as Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby, to me, is a...
I can't, because that's the thing. You don't know the impact to the victim. You just don't. Like, you can't, like, if you, let's say you're some fucking country girl that moves from Iowa to New York City, and you're working behind stage, and all of a sudden this big, rich, fucking redhead, gingered, allegedly funny dude says, hey, do you mind if I take my dick out? And you don't know fucking left from right, and you say yes, and then you see his stubby red dick, and you're like, what the fuck just happened?
All right.
Right, like, I mean, and you're just like, well, all of that makes me uncomfortable. I don't like the way you're phrasing it, right?
Well, because I have no idea what the stubbiness of Louis C.K.'s dick.
Yeah, you don't. But what I'm saying,
I
mean, but that's the reality of the situation. That's what that person is having to go through, and who knows how that impacts them, right? And whether, like, and if you think the impact should be small, guess what? You don't get to dictate what the impact is. How fucking, like,
but the impact doesn't affect the crime, Steve.
No,
the impact does not affect the crime.
No, he didn't.
Right?
Well,
if someone walks to, all right, so someone walks to me.
This is no. It's not about illegal. It's not about legal. What actually happened? But like the problem with this, the problem that you're having issues with, right? That whole idea of criminality, legality, like technicality, the phrasing, semantics, all of that. What women are saying is, just because he didn't hold me down, rip my underwear off, and fuck me in the ass doesn't mean that his actions didn't have a really shitty, negative, visceral impact on me. And just because he didn't rape me doesn't mean that I have the same negative reaction to men or dicks or whatever that the girl who was actually raped does. That's the thing. Like, just because he didn't rape her doesn't mean that this girl isn't as traumatized as the girl who was raped. That's the difference. That's the thing that fucking matters. That's the thing that we have to acknowledge.
Okay. I would say that's your point. The difference from a legal perspective and a
legal doesn't matter.
It does.
This isn't about legality.
Legal doesn't matter.
Yes. That's where you got to get this through your thick fucking skull. This isn't about legality. This is not about legality. No. You want it to be about legality because that's what protects you.
It matters.
It doesn't.
Why doesn't it? Really?
It doesn't.
Really?
It doesn't. No, it doesn't.
If O.J. Simpson was accused of slapping Nicole Simpson in the face versus cutting her throat, it doesn't fucking matter. From a legality standpoint, come on.
Okay, how about this? I'll make it very simple for you.
All right.
I bring my daughter over.
Yes.
We're hanging out.
Yes.
And she's playing in your front yard.
Okay.
And your neighbor across the street steps out on his front porch, whips his dick out in front of my 4-year-old daughter. What's our response?
I beat the fuck out of him.
He didn't commit a crime, according to you.
Sure he did. Fuck that. No. Okay.
Jim, it's not...
4-year-old. Hold on. Bring a 4-year-old into this discussion?
But Jim, my point is... My point with that whole fucking thing is... Right? Like just, there was an instant switch with you there. Right? Like, we don't... Like, whether she's 4 or fucking 40.
No!
It doesn't
it matters.
Why the fuck does it matter?
4 or 40?
Why does it matter?
If my neighbor did that in front of your daughter or my sister, huge difference.
Why?
Because your daughter's a fucking child.
Yeah.
And if someone did that to your daughter, who is a sweetheart, I love Eden.
I know.
If someone did something to harm your daughter, you're younger and faster than me, so I wouldn't have to worry about what I did because he would tackle me to get to them first. Fair. But that's a false equivalence.
What I do to you,
that's a bad equivalence.
To get to them, actually.
Exactly. Wait, stop hitting me.
Right, that would be criminal. That would be criminal.
How dare you get there first? But I consider it to be a false equivalency.
It's actually not a false equivalency.
It's an actual. Steven, let's shut this down.
It's not. My point on this is that we're looking at a situation with the Me Too movement and how men treat women. Men have treated women pretty shitty for a really long time.
The most of history, absolutely.
Your bar is very, very, very low for what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. Because you're saying, well, what's codified and what's legal and then all of that, but what women are literally telling you is like, and we've seen it, right? Like there are certain things that have been said, well, he did this and technically it's legal, and women are just like, yeah, but that really sucked for me, right? And that's the part, like very basic, like yes, it's legal, but it really sucked for the person that it happened to, and that fucking matters. That should matter more than fucking what was written on some fucking piece of shitty paper 100 fucking years ago. Right? Like, that's the point that women are fucking trying to make, and I'm not gonna fucking let it die just so that you can just say, well, I disagree, I overrule, and we're gonna move on. And I'm not saying that you're doing that, but that's what's happening. That's what's happening to women left and right all over the place. Right, that's why women are so angry with this whole situation with Brett Kavanaugh. It's not actually Brett Kavanaugh and Dr. Ford, right? Her first name, is it Christine?
Christine.
Oh, it is Christine. That's why I've been fucking calling her Dr. Ford, because I've been terrified that I've been screwing up her first name. But the whole situation with Christine Ford and Brett Kavanaugh, the reason why women are so angry on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else, it isn't actually that situation. It's that
the culture.
There is a culture in the idea to say that, well, the president has been said, legality, legal, this, that, blah, 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 blah. Like, I get it. Like, I totally get it. Yes, I'm an attorney. I've studied law. I paid $200,000 plus to study law. I get it. But this is bigger than just what law is, right? Like, this is how we treat our fellow human beings that are different than us because they got tits, vaginas, and they can have babies. It's different, right? Like, we just can't limit it to legality. And if you want to do that, then that means that you're protecting something. Like, listen, what do you know about the legal system? It's fucked, right?
Yeah.
You know goddamn well the legal system is fucked. How many documentaries have we watched about how it's fucked dudes who look like me? Right? You know goddamn well the legal system is fucked. So for you to stand behind the legal system and say that this is the thing that separates sexual impropriety and this is this is the standard, that's bullshit. You know goddamn well the legal system is fucked and rigged and there's all sorts of trickeration in it.
But, all right. Look, I'm not going to go
just
down
say
that
your
path.
point. Like, say your point.
My point is that to compare physically assaulting somebody versus exposing yourself as if they are the same thing, to me, is a bullshit argument. Bullshit. Neither of them are cool, but there's speeding and there's running someone over on the sidewalk.
But neither one is legal. Like,
neither of them are legal. Speeding's not legal. Running over someone on the sidewalk isn't legal. But to put them in the same category is...
But no one's putting them in the same
That's
category.
what it sounds like to me.
I don't care if you think that's what it sounds like. Listen, if you do something that's inappropriate, like, if you get busted for speeding, you get busted for speeding.
Right.
If you get, so here's the thing. Like, think of it this way. If you get arrested for a DUI, or you get arrested for physically assaulting someone, or you get arrested for stealing money, they all show up as an arrest on your record, right?
Yep.
And so there are some employers who will say you have an arrest on your
We're
record.
back to Brett Kavanaugh now, right?
Well, I'm just saying in general, like, you've got an arrest on your record, you don't get a job, right? Like, and then if they give you the chance to explain it, just because you get a chance to explain it, they just say, well, you're still an asshole. You got arrested for whatever you got arrested for, and you don't get a job, right? Like, so I don't understand what your issue is.
Then I think we've kind of jumped the tracks a bit, because I'm not defending Brett Kavanaugh on this whole thing. I'm saying when this became compare Bill Cosby to Louis C.K., I went apples to oranges.
It's not though, because listen, again, speeding, driving under the influence, running over grandma, right? Like, none of them are good.
Right.
All of them are bad. All are not allowed.
Right.
And giving girls drugs and then diddling their clits, not good. Not allowed. Having girls in your office and whipping your dick out when you're in a position of power, not allowed. Like, sorry.
But they're not. They're all on the same plane in your mind.
It's not about them being on the same plane. None of them are allowed.
Okay.
Right? Like, and
but there's degrees of transgression, right?
There are, and the sentence, like, if you're found guilty, you pay a fine and you serve the sentence that equates to it.
Right.
I'm not saying you sentence them all to life in prison, right? Like, one may be house arrest and a fine, but you're still a fucking dick for doing it. I'm not saying send Louis C.K. to jail for the same prison term that but, like, there needs to be some accountability. Like, just losing your job.
I don't object to that.
Just losing your job, because as a comic and as an actor, Louis C.K. being fired from a job, that's not accountability, right? Like, it sucks for him for the short term, but you let it die down or whatever, and maybe he pays a price, maybe not. But we need as a society to say, you got to be held accountable for your actions. And so the accountability for that is, you're on house arrest. You need a fucking permanent record of you being a dick, right? Like, you can't keep your dick in your pants, right? In a fucking office, experience, like, it's different. Like, if you're on a date, right, where you're with a woman and the expectations are a little bit different, and you say, hey, can I take my dick out? And she says yes, that's different, right? Because if she says no, then guess what? You're the one who's rejected. But when you're the person who employs her, right, then she may, like, if she says no, then she may lose her livelihood, right? So you're making her choose between the idea of being able to fucking feed herself and look at your fucking dick. When you're on a date, it's, I don't want to look at your dick, so I'm going to leave, and it's not going to cost me any fucking money other than the Uber ride home. That's the difference, right? Like, you can't, like, that's the thing that you can't do. Right? And whether, maybe it's an employment issue.
All right. I don't think what you're depicting on Louis C.K. in terms of him signing their checks is accurate. He was higher up on the scale. But
if Louis C.K. says, I want her gone, is she still there?
I don't know the details, Steve. I don't know.
All right, man. If you're gonna be that fucking guy, then fuck off. Like,
honestly, no.
You, like,
really? What was? All right. I don't know. What do you know?
Jen, if so, you mean to tell me if Louis C.K. says, I don't want this person working here anymore, then do you honestly think, like, let's just be grown-up adults about this. Do you think that they would just say, fuck you, she's going to still work here?
What was... Steve, I'm not trying to dodge.
All right.
I'm not trying to dodge.
That's exactly what the fuck you're doing.
This is what you're accusing me of. You're wrong.
Answer the question.
What was the situation? I don't even fucking know who accused him.
You're fucking dodging this.
Just who accused of what? If it was his show...
Some fucking assistant, some fucking girl...
No, it was other comics.
Fine, it was other comics. And if Louis C.K... all the praise that you give him, so now all of a sudden, no one gives a fuck what his opinion is?
That's not what I said at all.
What are you saying?
I'm saying
You're not saying anything.
I don't know who accused him of what. Oh, I know what they were accused him of, but I don't know what the situation was. I don't know, like, I mean, if it was on the show he had on HBO and someone that worked for the show had to kowtow to him, then I agree with you. I don't know that that's the case at all. Do you?
Okay.
Do you?
I don't know that.
Because if it was a couple of comics hanging out, getting high and smoking and drinking, and he was like, you know, I'm married, I can't fuck you, we're fooling around, can I jerk off in front of you?
That wasn't the accusation.
Actually, it was.
No, the accusation was that they worked on the same fucking. They were working in the same fucking environment, and he was the top comic or whatever. Whatever the hierarchy of your fucking world of comics was.
I don't know if that's accurate. I think he was a comic at the time. Holy fuck, we've talked about Louis C.K.'s dick for like half an hour now.
You know what I'm going to do?
What's that?
I'm going to find a picture of Louis C.K.'s dick on the internet.
All right. I'm
going to show it to you.
You can do that. I don't want to see that. Let's end this part of the show. I want to talk football. I want to talk football.
Dick.
I want to talk football for a bit. Do you want to talk football?
I do, and you're going to look at Louis C.K.'s dick.
Fine. I have to piss like a racehorse. So let's end this part of the show.
I'm going to show you his dick.
I know you are. And I will look at Louis C.K.'s dick against my will, which makes you a collaborator to Louis C.K.'s dick exposition, whatever.
It's fine.
All right.
Anyway, I won't
Steve, are you okay with us
yeah,
ending
this?
Down. Thank you. Always good talking to you, man.
Mm-hmm.
Let's play this on Barrell Bourbon because it got weird, hard, fast. I'm out.
Which is your fault because you bought it.
I did. I didn't ask your permission to buy it.
You didn't.
I did not say, Steve, can I buy Barrell Bourbon?
You fucked up in so many ways.
Steven, love you, man.
Bye.
I'm out.